right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. You're tuning in to the IC podcast with me, Maddie Lynn, the person in front of the camera right now, getting into the idea of what this platform, this space is for. I coined the term, the IC podcast, some time ago now, and with it comes the desire to express ideas of cosmic perspective, awareness. The idea comes to my language to describe to you all the things that come inside of the human experience. And so there are many entry points to this conversation of existence and consciousness. And so with some of the tools and vocabulary and language and themes and stories and all of the details I could get into a little bit later, comes the idea of bridging and relating that to our unified sense of being, what we are as a collective, comes through the lens of these eyeballs. These are blue light glasses, by the way. You should get yourself a pair if you're staring at screens. They definitely are worth it. So, anyways, carrying on. The IC podcast, here we are, welcome. So today, my intentions of recording a video are to describe to you the areas of conversation that I will be tuning in for, and thankfully, hopefully, if you're willing, you'll tune in again with me to find out more. So some of the conversation will circle around and we'll get into little bits of details where we'll talk and dive into certain topics and hopefully stay on track to all the ideas getting out in this video to generally get to the big picture of what it means to live within the human essence and live in honor of such essence. We'll get into other words, spirit, life path, soul purpose, whatever you really want to call it. There are ways to talk about it, and that is my job here. So, speaking of my job here, let's talk a little bit about my past work experience, who I was on the professional level, and what that meant for me and why I am here now in front of the camera choosing to do this, because this seems to align. So within my past experience, I used to have a job, a title, licensed practical nurse. That was my major area of study, where I had gone to school, college for, did the work thing for about 4 years, and that experience has been, let's just say, transformative to summarize. I have grown inside of that role of being a primary caregiver. For the most part, I was working inside of long-term care facilities, but I had experiences all throughout. I did community care and my experience in the hospital and all that in-between stuff. So within the idea of working as a nurse, inside that context, I was someone responsible for observations and assessments, talking about the biological expression of the body. And there are many ranges of motion inside of the expression and the channeling of our energy. And so what the body does is talk to you within... Hi. My kitten. Gonna come say hi? So the body talks to you within all of the experience it has. This is Cleo, also known as Sweet Pea. She's coming to say hello. Okay, put you down. So the body talks, and this is a notion that's circling around our world inside of the social medias and information age that we're a part of. There's the idea of somatic experiencing and all the healing modalities that come to what the body is telling you in terms of symptoms and, again, expressions as a word, or we can look into dis-eases, illnesses, conditions from our conditioning. And so the language I picked up on first was very much like jargon-based within the nursing world. It was symptoms and oh gosh, it's been so long since I've done this thing. Subjective information, that's the word I'm looking for. So, the subjective information provided by a patient, as well as their history, we look into these areas of life. And there is the book version of this notion, and then there is the reality where we don't actually, in practice, get really deep into why things happen, the root of problems and the causes of our issues and concerns. So often the Western medicine model, which I experienced deeply for about 4 years of my life, I was responsible for the Band-Aid application, literally doing wound care, but as well just giving medication, pharmaceuticals that were provided and prescribed to mask the symptoms or to lessen the symptoms without initiating any sort of rectifying behavior or changes to one's activities of daily living. And so thus we can look into the idea of one's health level. So the Western medicine model doesn't really have room for this conversation. They basically bypass the whole conversation and go straight to what can we do to lessen the symptom on that level and within that awareness. And it negates the whole notion of change and growth, awareness building, all these little things that could be implemented by simple conversation, some education, some development and progression of character, evolution of what one understands their life to be. So if that's where the conversation starts and ends, what does the individual expect to receive in the means of health and help, right? What are they going to get that'll help them feel better? I watched what it means to continue in one's preferences for years and 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 years until they end up in a long-term care facility where they've made no changes or very, very few, and as well that affects every other aspect of life. Everything communicates and relates to other parts of your being, and so your way of being, the way you choose to be and live, will end up being the way you are. And how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? So how you honor your life, how you can utilize and use energies and understandings and tools to make the most of one's day, that comes down to your desire to do so, or encouragement to do such. So as the person that I was inside of the Western medicine model, I was one to inspire interaction and movement as much as possible. As I began to grow in the understanding of what that is, I knew little bits of the effects of immobility, and I knew that from the book understanding of what it is, because here we are not doing things like moving around as much, and that might maybe lead to some constipation, or that maybe won't help your circulation whatsoever, so you'll have circulation issues down the road. I watched what the end result is, including mental spaces, including behavioral issues, and including diet. We'll talk a little bit about diet, because that's a taboo or touchy topic. We don't really like to get into it. Even for myself, I've had my own concerns with eating habits and coping mechanisms. It's a thing we got to get through in this world. So with the idea of what it looked like at the end of life, how people chose to be, I learned how to approach conversations in all varieties and do my best to instill some bit of support in certain moments to offer solutions as much as possible. I began with pharmaceuticals because that was the only thing I could provide, and then I learned that I could actually encourage somebody to do certain things, and that was turning into more of a life coaching approach to the nursing model. And there wasn't much time, get this, there wasn't much time inside of the facility for me to do that. I was somebody to do as much as I could in the physical way, interactions, and I'm saying, inspirational conversations, laughter, jokes, whatever I could, and then being told by my managers there's usually one inside of a facility, like the director of care, being told that I had to do more computer work and care planning, which, long story short, is much more just, this could work, this will do something, this is the idea, this is the intervention in place, which has its purpose, for sure. At the end of the day, I'm somebody to carry out tasks and duties and find out what works by applying myself and then talk about it after. So care planning, yes. Documentation, for sure, my job. But they were encouraging me in those moments to use my time to not actually do things with my residents, which was what they needed. So long story short, defining what someone needs in a day really is an individual conversation. It really is up to the person for their own understanding of their passions and what they want to do in life. And for the most part, it's very unique. Yet there are universal principles, and there are concepts that we can talk to in the form of language that is understandable and digestible, that we all require, that are essential. And so this word essential, let me tell you, lost its meaning over the last few years. Changed meaning, transformed in what it was supposed to mean. So essential really is something that you can pick up or put down in any sort of way. However, I've got a list of 8 that really do make more sense when I show you and talk about them and discuss how they all relate to our way of being and thus health level. So, here we are. I've put together on a lovely whiteboard what are the essentials inside of human nature. And this brings us to the idea of where we are inside of the world, inside of our lives and our choices. And this particular set of 8 things and definitions, I got from an individual named Dr. Tommy John. He was a chiropractor, doctor man that I found online talking the things of life, and was inspiring me to do the same in my way, in my time. And with this working definition, I've integrated and done my introspection and circled around and come back and really found myself as I applied the lenses that this is. So I'll go through them and we'll go back and forth on them because it's an ongoing conversation. So the first one we can get into will be relationship to breath. Right over here. And so relationship to breath is really like this fundamental conversation, and like I'm saying, this is the foundations of being right over here. So for me to say one is more important than the other is really redundant. But the relationship to breath is something to witness within one's own life, how you practice your breath and how you encourage yourself to open up to a greater and deeper breath. All of that is to say that how we breathe is how we move. It's where we can expand to in our physical sense and in our emotional sense and in our spiritual sense. Our mental realm is inflated because we've taken a breath and we can actually communicate ideas or have any sort of circulation, all of it together. And often within my experience of a nurse, my cat just wants to be a part of the conversation. Hope she's not too distracting. So, not on the computer. Please, please. Please, thank you. Thank you very much. So, I'm going to put this down for a second. Relationship to breath. Often, what I had witnessed was the idea that we are breathing in a much more shallow manner, where we're only letting it sit right up here. So we don't actually have awareness to let the breath travel down all the way to the bits of our diaphragm that are at the bottom, the bits of our abdominal cavity that are housing the breath all the way down here. Even inside of this video, I get quick. I let my breath ride a little high, and it takes a moment to ground myself inside of my own breath. Ways to invite oneself to practice breathing is what we call pranayama inside of the yoga world. Breath work is another area or language we can talk about the idea of how we're breathing and experience that notion and then come to a deeper participation. And so other perspectives and awarenesses I can bring to the conversation of breath is what my job was inside of monitoring one's medications, including puffers and inhalers, and what those were there for, how they were responding to anxiety, the whole 9 yards, truly. So when an individual was to be administered with their inhaler, when they had to take their puffer, there was the encouragement to take a deep breath as well. And some people didn't, never did, not once, unless they were really directed to do so, because it was not within their practice, it wasn't within their awareness. They just simply did not do it, and so they didn't know how. They didn't build the muscles to even do it. It takes strength to open up to a deeper breath that softens then your entire being. Not only does breath center you and bring you into a now moment and remind you that you are alive and well, it also is what carries you forward into the next. Your next breath is your next movement. So there's lots I could say. There's lots I will say. The breath is an idea that is ever going, and often we just get into our heads rather than get into our breath and body. And so the breath really is that bridgeway from one part of our being, the crown of our head, down to the very tips of our toes, travels through every part of your body. And in yoga, we talk about this notion of expansion. Every single cell, every single fiber of your being fills up with breath. And then, right, when you breathe, circulation of oxygen, then your oxygen is carried to your cells for nutrients and conduction of energy, and then thus travels back out through your body in a different chemical format, and you've just exhaled and contracted every single fiber of your being. And that continuous cycle is what lifts your energy up and down and out. Yosh. And we need to practice this. We need to harness it. We need to encourage it and contain it. So other thinking as well with the idea of expansion and contraction, there's this beautiful analogy that I actually just started saying and then read about in this book, which I'll get to. The notion that there's this beautiful metaphor, analogy, I said analogy first, of the accordion. So when you breathe in, expanding your accordion all the way left, right, center. I'm going to put you down, okay? She's very cuddly right now. She's mostly cuddly. It's kind of fun in every moment. Yeah, oh. I love you too. Yeah. So, breath is not only up and down, in and out, but this lateral sense as well. So we breathe and our body expands this way, like we draw the accordion out, and then when we exhale, not only does our diaphragm, abdominal muscles come inwards, our navel draws to spine, but as well this compression of left and right comes all the way in. And this, my friends, is exercise at the same time as the fact that you're just breathing. You're just breathing, simply breathing. You are simply breathing. And this is the nature of how our body cycles and circulates energy. Otherwise you wouldn't be alive. Literally, the first principles of nursing, when you're going to check out a patient if they're okay, A, B, C. Airway, breathing, circulation. If they're not able to confirm their airway is clear, obviously there's something in there. If they're not breathing, they're not circulating, you're not there. Not alive. The whole thing. That's the whole idea. So, relationship to breath, this is for me to say, or a lot, what am I trying to say? This is all to say, breathe, friends. It'll all be okay. Carry on with breath. Social interactions. I'm going to go through the list now, and then I'll kind of dive into them all. Social interactions, nourishment, hydration and nutrients, sleep. This includes naps and rest, body movement, outside time, which also includes the idea of fresh air, breath, but also daylight and vitamin D into your body. We love it. We want it. Get yourselves outside. Don't stay inside all day. And then here we are back to the, one more over there, purpose, day-to-day, and grand. And then at the top we have belief in a higher power. So I will dive into each one today and have a little bit of language and references to bring a bit more depth to the topics and categories as we talk about experience as the matter of fact of being human. We have to talk about it through stories and reference to the body, mind, spirit, and all the in-between stuff. So, anyways, so let's go to outside time, daylight, vitamin D. It's quite simple. Like I just said, get yourself outside. The fact that we don't prioritize this, I like to just briefly mention what good it does, rather than focus on the sadness of withdrawing and going into your own world and staying indoors and retreating into maybe your closet even. I've seen that. The desire to go outside is when you know you have the spark of passion for life, to live it out. And if you aren't there yet, let's evaluate the rest of your health level, right? But otherwise, find yourself within your day. When can that time frame be? When can you get outside? Carve the time out to get out there and maybe touch the grass. Maybe take your shoes off. Maybe connect. Oh, I have a reference as well as to the fact of what I believe I did read that somewhere recently. In one of these books I've brought up, just the fact of the matter, what the grass does for our body. Transmission of, I remember that, transmission of energy is what it's about. Anyways, body movement, big one here. So body movement, like I was mentioning earlier, if one does not move their body, there is an ultimate consequence. Your body does then start shutting down. And the phrase I remember hearing as a young kid, and even growing up and in the nursing school and circle, a body in motion stays in motion. Simple, right? And there are many ways to kind of come at this conversation, but we're meant to be continuous and find that pendulum swing of every day doing a little bit, every day getting our hearts pumping, every day, do something every day. There is the notion that we sit for our jobs, or we're just standing for our jobs, and there's that limitation of range of motion. Range of motion is the idea that we have much more energy to grow inside of, and I'm saying the idea of energy, or I'm communicating energy, but energy and expression. So when we express ourselves, we move. Maybe we dance. Maybe that's your practice you find yourself inside of that you love the most. Maybe music is where you can feel yourself wanting to move. And it's a big yes in my books. I'm a huge fan of dancing and dancing around and all the forms of expression inside of that. You can find yourself with different sounds and rhythms and all that. That idea continues on into my mind and excites me quite a bit. Other forms of movement, simply walking. Walking is such medicine. It is described as medicine in so many different circles, and because I've paged a book here about walking, I'm definitely just going to pull it up real quick because this book says it really well. So, out of all the things you can do, the simple one on walking, this book articulates the idea, so I'm just going to go ahead and read it. Carry your body, but please do not let your body carry you. Walking in the streets, one can see people heavily following their bodies. Their heads lean forwards, pulling by their necks on their insecure legs, their feet scarcely touching the ground. It is evident that they are slaves to their bodies, following the whispering of their chattering minds. We must walk well, as animals do. Put the heels down first, placing feet straight in front of you. Then expand the sole of the foot, allowing it to receive the weight of the body, moving towards the toes. while the other leg moves forwards, continue to keep the back foot on the ground so that the back of the knee remains extended and open until the last moment before lifting the foot up for the next step. This way of walking will help you reestablish order if your body has developed bad habits. We are always in a hurry. We run in order to be able to do as many things as possible, to achieve, to become, to obtain. To run is a symptom of fear, to run after something, after somebody. We are slaves not only to others, but to ourselves, to our ideas, to our ambitions, to our projects, and even to our mental projections. This is a miserable attitude that life does not deserve. The slave runs, but the king keeps quiet and remains still in his place. Like I said, it said it best. Going for a walk, you can allow yourself that simple ease of transitioning your legs, that pedaling motion, stretching your back leg back, one leg back, and your front leg forward, your forward leg. My computer's telling me it's running out of battery, so let's hope I can wrap this all up real quick here. So, carrying on with body movement being such an integral proportion to the daytime, we also need to understand that to have a good day is to have a good night's rest. And that really does come into the idea of what are we doing in our day? Oh, I have so much I want to say. Let's just carry on, shall we? We have gotten to nourishment now. So nourishment, hydration, I'm not going to spend all of my time teaching you in this moment what it means, because I'm still learning as well, and that conversation is very specific to what each individual needs and when you eat, why you eat, what foods you like, textures, the whole thing. But the whole fact is, nourish your body, and the other part of me wants to mention the notion of organic, non-GMO, figuring out those seeds of idea of eating local and buying foods that are made with love, so that your body feels that energy and then feels you and all of your purpose, which is where we're going. But first, social interactions. So social interactions, you cannot avoid them. We are deeply embedded in this world as a collective, and we need the participation of everybody to get where we're going. And if you're living out life in a different way where you're avoiding social interactions, maybe this is a signifier to reevaluate and to recognize who you want to attune to and maybe who you need to walk away from and love from afar. And that's a whole conversation. I mentioned the word boundaries earlier, and we got to figure out where that line is and where we're going, because our people, our allies, our friends, the people we're meant to grow with, they bring us the idea of our dreams and passions inside of conversations we have with them. They're the ones to instill the desire to move forward in such ways that we can see ourselves doing it together. You know, it's not for one to say, you know, I'm all by myself on this little island over here and I don't need anybody whatsoever. I'm gonna grow my own food and I'm gonna live with my 17 cats. And no, my friends, community, longing and belonging. We are meant to be part of a bigger picture, and we just want to have reciprocation. And by contributing your own skills and gifts, you are complementing other people's skills and gifts and what they're here to do. And by letting others help you and asking for that help, you're also being a part of the story. And so that's just a little bit of language for me to say. There's so much there for us to come into when we open those doors and maybe close other ones. And here we are with purpose, day-to-day and ground. Each day we have maybe a set of tasks and certain agendas and errands and whatnot that are for the material processing, getting yourself fed and dressed and, you know, going to and from work, and all those things happen. all those things got to be checked off the list. And ultimately, how are you utilizing your day with the time in between those things to get forward in your own progression of story and evolution of soul, spirit, mission? I'm just throwing words out there now to really bring you to the place of where we want to go. Why do you have the things in your day occupying your time? And if you really do want to get somewhere in life, it's not for me to say where that is. It's definitely up to you to have that conversation. But have the conversation. What are your dreams? What are you envisioning for yourself? What is the grand purpose for you on this planet Earth? Here now. Hopefully you can honor your own internal world and listen to what that is for yourself, because no one can tell you, no one is able to tell you and direct you. You must come to that awareness to apply your discernment to find that direction for yourself. And then this top part, belief in a higher power. This is a big one for me to begin to talk about, because that's where I've been wanting and desiring to express and communicate. Let me put this down now. The notion that there is this undeniable presence of spirit inside of our lives. And we can talk about avenues of life and what is here invisible. And then in between that conversation, there is all of these other energies that are tangible, that we weave together inside of our choices and our behaviors and our personalities and our patterns. So why we do things, coming into the idea that there's a why, there's a driving force to go somewhere in life. Why? So the belief in the higher power, being able to believe in something outside of yourself, is what centers you inside of the idea of trust, faith, that it is not all up to you, and it couldn't be. Lovely, right? No way can one individual carry the weight of the world on their shoulders, and by doing so, you will show yourself that you are not able to hold it all up. It is necessary to let that weight go and recognize that your life, your path, your mission is to be lived out through your lens. But by tuning in to this idea of a higher power, this mission, this ambitious energy inside of you to do something in life, you will find yourself called to such endeavors and walking out the very things you're meant to, rather than entertaining distractions and concerning yourself with consumption and all the things outside of progression and evolution. There are lovely conversations to come into this notion of spirit and spiritual realm, and by even entertaining the conversation, you can find within yourself where you are, where your acceptance lies, where you see yourself, right? So where you see yourself inside of all of these things is very, very important, and you don't have to define them first. It actually is the way of our being to live in such a way and find life calling us into the path that we are. And as we walk, we then find definitions and explanations and categories to be like, oh, that's why I do this, and that makes sense. Let me go dive in further now that I have this understanding. So this wonderful book I've recently found actually gives amazing definitions. It's called Divining the Future, and it just makes me so happy because all my ideas that I circle around and talk about exist in one book. Even things I would never even have thought to look about, like references on people, yada, yada, yada. So we're going to look into a definition of soul. Oh. Hang on here. And spirituality. So, as the book reads, soul, the essence of ethereal intelligence. The soul is believed to possess the knowledge of the entity. The soul gives instructions to the entity in order to enable it function. It is considered to be the energy of all substances, and all substances have a soul. It is the principle of life, and it is life. So then it goes into saying what Plato believed to be, and who other characters, what they've, spoken about. Plato believed that the soul was made up of 4 substances: reason, understanding, faith, and perfection. Carl Jung said that the soul had 4 faculties: thinking, sensation, feeling, and intuition. Eliphas Levi theorized that the soul is and has no ending. It is a thought of God, and the soul holds all the attributes of God. Albert Einstein believed that the human soul is an electromagnetic force that holds together the protoplasmic energy in the body prior to death. This substance is then duplicated in a life after death. In Western religious traditions, the soul is an immaterial element that is combined with the human form of blood, tissue, and skin to make up the human body. It is conceived of inner, vital, and spiritual essences and governs the body as well as the mind. In the Hindu religion and in other schools of thought, it is believed that the soul does not die but is reincarnated into other beings in order to learn various lessons. Some cultural beliefs include healing the soul through ritual practices, often with the assistance of a shaman. In out-of-body experiences, it is the soul that travels to see and experience other dimensions. Edgar Case's travels to read the Akashic records were done through this soul journey. Anyways, circles of conversation to talk about what this very notion of soul is, and the fact that it's of the very notion of our entity. The soul brings us to our experiences, and it's the belief in such that allows us, these experiences, to grow inside of them as well, to become more soulful. Hold on, there's another little lovely quote I'm going to pull out from another book. On this page, talks about nature in this book. Witchcrafting. Again, this is what I just found. I have a lot of books that I don't actually finish all the way through sometimes, but the buzzwords, I find where that is inside of my life, and I love communicating the ideas as I experience them as well. So reading is one pastime I spend some time in. Okay, so with this lovely quote, nature is the embodiment of divinity. Indigenous peoples lived close to the land and therefore knew the natural world as holy. The author says, if you're like me, you live much of your life largely separated from nature, and so you and I, myself included, must work harder to reestablish the sacred and magical relationship, but the rewards are well worth the effort. One of the oldest definitions of a witch was someone who worked with hidden or unseen forces. In a sense, that's true. You can't see some subatomic particles, nor can you see the waves of energy at the heart of those particles, but you do see the material expression of that energy. Just as seeing someone smile is seeing their outer or physical expression of her or his inner emotional or energetic life, when you see the earth in all of its perfection and balanced beauty, you are looking at the outer expression of an inner divinity. Nature makes the divine tangible. Nature is the gown the goddess wears to make herself visible, and the dance the god dances to express his joy. Looking at nature, we see living, incarnate divinity. So, in fact, I have a new definition of a witch. A witch is someone who is paying attention, who is aware of the divine presence in all things, and if you're seeking the sacred, you will find it by immersing yourself in nature. So, I love reading people talk about esoteric and metaphysical and mystical things. I have another book I want to get into. However, I believe my laptop may not enjoy the time frame I've given it. So we'll only go so far inside of other people's language today. The other idea I really wanted to come into was mysticism. Because our conversation is about an idea of general approach to the grand idea of life, how you spend one's day, or how one spends their day, ties in the notion of the feelings and the mystical, spiritual element of what a day is. It looks like this. We're humans. We have a body. We gotta pay attention to the body, do we not? I've been living my life in many ways, and my body talks to me. I know yours talks to you. I was taught to pick up on things, and I've picked up on a lot to be able to articulate where one's mind is inside of the body's experience, as well as where one's body is inside of the mind's experience. It's all connected, and your breath, your spirit, the channeling of it, the channel of it, brings you through to every single other part of your life. And the power of belief, it heals, it guides, shapes your reality. What is reality, right? So the mystical conversation, the idea of who a mystic is, and the fact that we all have this part of us that then wants to channel and express our own spirit, our own soul, because that's what we're here for. And it usually looks like science or art, because the art of science and the science of art is the nature of our existence here as humans. So, a definition, back to the divining the future. A mystic, one who professes to know and be capable of delivering metaphysical knowledge in a new or innovative way. And this is some language from way back when. It talks about it saying that mystics have been known since the beginning of time. The word mystical comes from the root word mystiko, which is Greek for hidden wisdom. The Old and New Testaments are filled with accounts of stories, warnings, and knowledge dispensed and shared by mystics. So it doesn't have its limits inside of religion. However, the fact that religion talks about mysticism, another book I will graciously share with you, The Coming of the Cosmic Christ. I found this in one of the old folks' homes and was gifted to me. So one of the lovely pages I'm going to come to will define for us religion. In the term, in the Latin word, will define religion from its Latin origin. So, in understanding mysticism as a return to our source, we rediscover the etymological meaning of the word religion itself. As we discussed earlier, the book said it earlier, religion is derived from the Latin word religare, meaning to bind back again or to bind back. Mysticism is a binding back or a rebonding with our very source. Beautiful stuff. So, within that notion of source, language is so important because people often can get caught up in the patterns and the path of what it means to dedicate to anything. So religion right now is not necessarily something we like to talk about because it means you have to live a certain way. And this is a tarnished version of what healthy religion is, because healthy religion is defined as mysticism. Descriptions of our source being open and limitless should not be limited to religion. It is a source of all. We can say God, we can call it source, higher power, creator, universe, whatever word comes to your mind, whatever essence of the idea you want to communicate is for you to decide. The notion remains the same, that our essence is housed inside of the fabric of reality, the fabric of nature. I had written something once, and I'll share with you now, a way to describe my experience of such unification or unity. So my words were, resistance is futile, unnecessary within the experience of love. Endless folds of fractal nature housing the divine essence. I think I said it differently. I wish I had it right in front of me. I might. I do not. Don't mind me. Resistance is futile, unnecessary within the experience of love. Folds of fractal nature endlessly housing the divine essence. That's what it was. And here we are, discovering divinity and living with it. What is it? How are you honoring it? What does your day look like? And if you'd like to talk about what that is, we can approach it via categories of assessment inside of the idea of health level, or we can talk about it in the spiritual world, approaching it through conversation of belief, through tarot, through astrology. There are avenues to talk about where that resides in the body, and then thus also avenues within the life path, within the choices, within the decisions that one makes. Because you make your life. End of point. Period. You create your reality. Your beliefs shape your reality, and there's so many sources out there that talk about this, the science of it, the beauty of it. It's to empower you to live your life the way that you find yourself with it. It happens in the now moment as well, so that is to say, it is not, this is all to say, it's not as easy sometimes. It's actually quite difficult to go through pain and to traverse through uncomfortable and uncertain emotions where you're not even sure where your next step is going to be. With that notion, I can guarantee you'll get through the other side. A lovely book that I'm still in the process of reading, which I'll flash here now because it's a good one if you wanted to find a source to turn to. This is a Dr. Arthur Genov, The New Primal Scream. It talks about everything that you could imagine within getting through to the other side of emotions, of experience, of trauma, of pain. It articulates it the best. I could jump into the book now, but I'll save that for another time and maybe invite you to find the source for yourself. So with that, friends, I'll leave you with this video. And if you have any comments, questions, concerns, desires to reach out, lay it on me. Reach out and send me a comment or a message. I am open for not only conversation just about this video, but I'm open to consults and opening up to space of any kind to dive into life with you. So know that I'm here, and I will continue to communicate what I'm here for. All of my offerings will be available to revisit, even if you missed this little bit of the video or didn't come to the very end. I'll put it out there again and again that I'm here for all kinds of conversation, and communication is my strong suit, apparently. So with that, friends, stay well and be good to yourselves. Namaste and peace.